I have a kind of peripheral sense that I'm disliked by some people, but I don't have a television. I don't go on the internet. I don't use social media. I'm pretty insulated from that stuff because why would I let
you literally don't? I know you don't check Twitter, but you literally don't have a television?
Oh no, I've never had a TV. No.
Wow.
No. I just didn't. I didn't grow up like that. And my dad worked in TV when I was a kid, and he was pretty pro reading, I would say. He was a militant reading person. So yeah, we had a lot of enforced reading in our house, and so that's how I grew up.
I'm Dave Rubin, and joining me today is the host of Tucker Carlson Tonight on Fox News and the author of the new book, The Long Slide, 30 Years in American Journalism. Tucker Carlson, welcome back to the Rubin Report.
Ladies and gentlemen, thanks for having me, Dave.
Tucker, you are not in your studio. You're not in a suit. You appear to be in some sort of secret bunker area with books and pictures. What's going on over there?
I'm in my barn, actually, to be totally honest, which is where I work. I live in a rural area in northern New England, and we have an old barn that we use for everything, basically, to store the boats. And my wife has her Peloton, and we have our studio in it, and, bunk beds for people. And so, yeah, I live in my barn.
So you're kind of living the dream that you always wanted in a way. I mean, a couple of years ago, I've quoted this many times, quoted you actually many times. You walked into my house, opened the door to my garage, and I don't know if Fox News is going to want me to say the exact thing you said, but you basically said, holy effing shit, you've done it. Meaning that I had a studio at home and I was able to run my operation. You've kind of expanded into that world while still maintaining the mainstream cred.
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, I've always believed that what matters is how you live. What's your life like? What do you do when you wake up? What time do you wake up? Who do you wake up with? I mean, those are the things that define your life. And so when I saw how you lived, I thought, man, this guy is really I mean, I know people who make a ton of money who don't live anywhere near as well as you do. And I was just so impressed by that. And confluence of events happened, and we actually live in the town that we've been in our whole lives. So it's not, we didn't move anywhere weird. This is where, we had a house here always growing up, but why not just move there? And so we did, and it's been wonderful.
Yeah, and you were dealing with some headaches living in some other places because, obviously the media matters people and all the usual trolls and everything. They were sending people to your house and,
right.
Literally like going after your wife and kids and all that. I know it's not fun to talk about that, but can you just talk about it a little bit, just sort of relative to, you're just trying to do what you think is right as a journalist and as a personality, and then how it affects the life and the people around you?
Yeah, I mean, it was just sad to see it happen. I moved to Washington as a kid. My dad worked for the federal government and on the Cold War and doing pretty honorable things, I would say. I think that anyway. And so I've lived in Washington essentially my whole adult life, since high school. And it's a bipartisan town. I mean, by definition, both parties are represented. Both parties live there. And as a result, there's been this permanent truce effectively for decades where you can live next to people you disagree with, but you don't talk about it at dinner parties. You can be friends anyway. And I love that environment. A lot of my friends had politics different from mine. And then in 2016, Trump was such a threat. They were so worried. Not that Trump would actually do anything, and he really didn't, as we know. But he said stuff, and he said obvious stuff, and they were so terrified that Trump was going to point out some really obvious things about the way things actually work that they were completely threatened by him. Really threatened by him. It was like a foreign power occupying the city, and the hatred, the bitterness. And I just kind of agreed with a lot of Trump's, ideas may be a little strong, but themes, like when you run the government, you should always ask yourself, is this helping the people who live here, who voted for me, who pay for all of this, whose country it is? I really agree with that. I always have. So that the division in the city between the overwhelming majority of people who saw Trump as this satanic figure and the tiny minority of us who were like, well, yeah, okay, Trump, whatever, it's obvious, he's got all these personal faults, got it. But he's making really good points. Like, what is the point of NATO? Just pick one of 1,000 examples. Why shouldn't we have a border wall? Mm-hmm. What about all those people who died of fentanyl? Like, what's the answer? And all of a sudden it just became impossible to live there. And then, I've never lived by a gate or anything. We lived right on the street in the city. I raised my 4 kids there, and all of our dogs and all this stuff. And I felt like we were really part of the city. And then next thing you know, people are showing up at the house, and you can sort of see where this is going.
Mm-hmm.
It's so threatening. Where does it end? You're going to wind up shooting somebody. And I don't want to do that. I hate, but that's where it's going, because just living there was so provocative to them. Having them show up and threaten violence against my family was so threatening to me that it wasn't going to end well. And I just thought, and our 4th child went off to boarding school, and we didn't have any kids at home. And so we're like, well, wait, why don't we just move to where we already spend the summer? So we did.
Yeah. So do you think that the people that you're talking about there that are sort of the permanent DC class and the swamp, as Trump would call them, do you think it's a conscious decision that they're always existing to keep themselves in that power? Or is it just that you just get there and then before you know it, you're just in this thing and you like what's happening, so you just stay in that thing? So that's why he was the threat to it. And I would argue that in a weird way, now that Trump has stepped away, a lot of the hatred that was just always directed towards Trump is now directed more towards you because you're carrying the torch for some of those ideas. Yeah,
I'm not totally aware of that. I have a kind of peripheral sense that I'm disliked by some people, but I don't have a television. I don't go on the internet. I don't use social media. I'm pretty insulated from that stuff because why would I let
you literally don't? I know you don't check Twitter, but you literally don't have a television?
Oh no, I've never had a TV. No.
Wow.
No, I just didn't, I didn't grow up like that. And my dad worked in TV when I was a kid, and he was pretty pro reading, I would say. He was a militant reading person. So yeah, we had a lot of enforced reading in our house. And so that's how I grew up. But but mostly, I have a very close circle of friends, and I have a big family, and I'm really close to my wife and my producers, who I absolutely love. My executive producer, I'm really close to him. So I have a lot of people around me who will tell me the truth and do. If they think I'm being a douche or I'm crossing some line or whatever, they'll just say it. They're not afraid. They're not afraid of me at all. So unfortunately, so I feel like I've got a pretty good series of backstops against going totally crazy. And so, and I really care about their opinion because these are people I love and respect. And so my view has always been my whole life. I had a weird childhood, which kind of changed my view on this, but fundamentally it was, you should only care about the opinions of people who care about you and who have, demonstrated loyalty and wisdom and an ongoing relationship. Why would you ever let strangers have control of your emotional state? Like, that's insane. And, you hear people say that, but I think I'm in the rare category of people who mean it. So I would never go online and Google myself. Why would I do that?
No, I know you mean it. Right, exactly. I know you mean it because I think the first time we met in person, I asked you something about the hate and the Twitter mentions, and you're like, I don't have Twitter. Like, it's it's Tucker Carlson on Twitter, where you're like, it's not, I'm not the one checking it and tweeting this stuff, and that keeps you kind of insulated and safe and sane.
And I have a huge number of people I talk to every day. I spend my whole life talking to people, mostly by text, but hundreds of people. And I try to clear my text every night. It was up till 2 a.m. in front of the fire where I live. It's cold on September 1st, and with my dogs, and I'm up really late banging out these texts, taking notes. So I speak to a ton of people, and not just people in my world, not just famous rich people, but a lot of random people. A waitress that I had in Big Sur, and I hope she's watching this, I know she's a fan of yours, years ago, I gave her my text for some reason, and she and her husband are such thoughtful people, and she has been texting me ever since. And I swear, once a month, 2 nights ago, I used one of her lines on the air. Yeah. At least once a month, I'll run with a story idea she sends me. So I have a huge number of people that I correspond with, but I don't want to open it up to the mob. Because then I can't think clearly. And my whole job is, and I don't always pull it off, but I really try to think clearly, what is going on here? Ascend a little bit, get higher, look down. What are the outlines of this? And being involved in this, fuck you too, whoa. I don't like noise in my personal life. I like quiet, and I don't like noise in my work or intellectual life. I like to think. I like nature. I like hunting and fishing. I like to be outside. I don't want to sit in a room and read other people's hysteria. I don't think there's any upside to that at all.
If you're looking for more honest and thoughtful conversations about the media instead of nonstop yelling, check out our media playlist. And if you want to watch full interviews on a variety of topics, check out the full episode playlist. They're both right over here. And to get notified of all future videos, be sure to subscribe and click the notification bell.